The balsams always held my attention because when I was a little kid, a little boy, if my folks went out that way and drove by it, I could not wait to see the balsams. It reminded me of a castle. I used to dream that there was a king and a queen living there. It's just a sense of awe, and I still have that feeling today.
During the heyday of the Grand Hotels in the White Mountains, they were the destination in America in terms of where you went for summer until the West opened up.
What makes a Grand Hotel is exemplary service, exemplary food, exemplary amenities, cleanliness, and then a personality, which comes from the general manager.
And I suppose they were grand because of their location, for a start, and their architecture, which was vast, and sweeping porches and turrets, and I have a window and a chimney, and architecture you just won't see anywhere else.
I think it's their palatial quality, the large lobbies that you can no longer afford to build, the rivalry for who had the longest veranda that you could no longer afford to build, the how many rocking chairs are out there where people can just sit and enjoy themselves.
And they were built in areas where they sort of interacted with the land and surrounding landscape, mountain views.
Grand because of the service, I think, that they provided back then. We had electric showers, we had our own dairy, we had our own stables, we had a ballroom, a casino. The guests were entertained every night with, musicians and ballroom dancing, and grand, I think, because of the amenities and the food that was served in these hotels in those days.
We're in the ballroom dining room, which is octagonal or round, and the reason it is round is that people came in those days, in the heyday of the Grand Hotel, they came for the summer or the season, and if you were Mrs. John Rockefeller, it would be socially unacceptable to sit in a corner if you were one of those wealthy people. So, ergo, there were no corners.
Many of the hotels were built by, so to speak, master builders, and designed and built by master builders.
There were three distinct kinds of properties. There were the farmhouses that grew up, and some of them got real big and some of them didn't, so you had that. And then there were those that were built by architects, but in a very inexpensive design. Then you had, at the end, you had the building of the Mount Washington Hotel, which was designed by an architect. It never had an addition or a deletion in 100 years. And it was built to be grand, with high ceilings, with chandeliers, and with elegant windows, and drenched in Tiffany glass.
But that's referred to by our architectural historians as Spanish Renaissance revival architecture, and a lot of it has to do with the way that its location and the way that it relates to the surrounding landscape.
It was designed to be grand. So I think the hotels with the large verandas were grand in their own way, but truly the Mount Washington was the grandest.
And they bragged about, at the Mount Washington, if you walked around the piazza 4 times, you'd been a mile.
The rooms were not that important. They were not glamorous, they were not elegant, they were not packed with Saks Fifth Avenue amenities, but it was the food. And I remember when I worked at the Belmont on Cape Cod, another grand hotel, a guest telling me the first time he went there, he said they went into the room and he had to stand on the bed to unpack. And he said, well, we're going to stay here about one night. And he said, and then I went to the dining room. And that was 30 years ago.
They were fabulous, fabulous places. Very, very sparse upstairs. The hotels all spend all their money most of the time, back in those days, on the ground floor, because that's where everybody was. I mean, if you came to the Grand Hotel, you wanted to be seen. And so only time you spent in your room was sleeping.
But what brought the guests back was the ability to see and to be seen and to talk and see each other year after year after year.
There's just something about these hotels that can never be recreated, you know, so, and I love hotels of all shapes and sizes, and new and old, but coming into an old Grand Hotel of New England, there's just a feeling, I think you can feel the history and can't be recreated.